everything we've done since inception has always been around understanding the occupier. By 2030, out of the 10 to 12 million office space which is taken up every single year, AI could be as much as 4 million of that. People are seeing opportunity now in these lower quality buildings.
You don't care what the company is that it is, you care about the experience and impact on the people.
And that's the piece we can all do better is as an industry is to sort of drag that forward to look at occupier impact. For me, it's a really positive time in real estate. I'm a glass half full person. It's all really positive.
Welcome to The Good, The Bad, The PropTech. I'm delighted today to be joined by Anthony Murphy, one of the owners of Making Moves, one of the biggest tenant representative companies in central London. Definitely a bit of a disruptor, I'd say, as a compliment on insult. And really looking forward to talking to him about what occupiers are actually talking about when it comes to office space, their moves, things that are priorities. But I think, Anthony, I can't give a better introduction to your own business. So talk us through yourself and a little bit more about Making Moves.
Lovely. Love that. Thanks for that. Buzzing to be here. Exactly that. So making moves. So we are disruptor. Oh, I still love to say that. I've only ever advised occupiers in the last 11 years. So what is quite unique about us is that everything we've done since inception 11 years ago has always been around understanding the occupier. So buzzing about our chat today because especially in the last few years with the flip in the market from AI to all the ESG stuff, sustainability stuff, and this real moving market, I've got some really good insight to share today. So our focus, just to touch on it as a business, has always been around service and what the occupier needs. So whether that's an upsize, downsize, move around London, into Europe, or across the world. And we provide that service where it's either find the office or actually we can do things like the build out of the office, the physical space, the space planning, that sort of stuff. So I hate the term. It really is the end-to-end, end-to-end process for the occupier. But yeah, looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I think the part which I really want to talk to you about is there's been a lot of hype that we've seen on people talking about different businesses. You've already said a load of buzzwords, which is great. AI, ESG, sustainability, right? Which is the things that we hear talked about a lot. They're part of brochures, part of like the sales rhetoric. And having listened to a lot of the talks up at UK Reef, there was a huge consideration that the AI companies, the large language model businesses, they're going to take all the office space because they're in a massive booming market. Like, is that what you're seeing? Obviously, you've represented some growing businesses.
Yeah.
Is that what it feels like on the ground?
I'd say yes. So it's pretty crazy what's going on in the market in terms of the AI sector. So they're definitely one of the fastest growing sectors in the UK right now. You've always seen the headlines. The headlines are Anthropic, which is Claude. You've got OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. You've got Bezos as one. You've got Google DeepMind. They've all taken huge chunks of space around London. Yeah. And interestingly, location-wise, there are quite a few pockets. There's your King's Cross. There's Fitzrovia. You've obviously got Old Street, Shoreditch. Contexa, a cybersecurity AI business, took a load of space down in South Bank. So they're really dotted around. So there's no doubt that these occupiers who are your household names, even though they're only like 4 or 5 years old and they're turning over like billions and billions, they are looking for best-in-class buildings. But the key thing for them is they want space to grow. Okay. So if you look at like Anthropic's a good one. Say there are 200-300 people there taking space for thousands, which I think is great for the market because they're backing themselves to get the talent. Now, I think that's only one part of the market. And what you've got is then you've got your sort of mid-range AI firms and your startups. Okay. Who are also looking for really good buildings. They're all location driven because they want to attract the best talent. However, they're not as focused on taking every bit of space available in that building. They're a bit more measured. Okay. What they do want to secure an asset or a space which reflects their brand, their ability to really put their stamp on it. So if you're up against the big boys, as we can say, to get the talent, they've got the space you can come to and really, work together, collaborate, and grow as people. Yeah. It's so people centric is what they're doing. So to answer your question, it is a crazy sector, and they are hoovering up spaces, but there are limits to the amount of space they'll take. Yeah. And I do feel that. There's a stat, I think it was Cushman Wakefield said by 2030, out of the 10 to 12 million office space which is taken up every single year, AI could be as much as 4 million of that. So it could be like 34% of all take up. So I can't see that stopping, but let's see where AI goes in the next
let's
six
not talk
couple
about
of years.
bubbles. Let's be positive about things.
Yeah.
It's good. It's going to keep booming.
Yeah,
It's
I
going to
love
keep taking it up. One of the things that often I would say clearly from a property technology perspective, advising landlords, like you've obviously mentioned location, the attracting talent, which I think is probably the same for whether you're in insurance, whether you're in any sector, you want to be around your competitors and where you can get the best talent too. But from my perspective, like, is there anything that they are asking differently of buildings? Because there's been a lot of talk around they want more power, they want more connectivity. Like, is it actually more than office space, or is it just an office space and the location and rent is still the most driving factor versus having additional requirements of what needs to be in that asset for them to take it?
In terms of like power and data, I'll be honest, it's they not nothing over and above. There will be people like Quantex, so their cybersecurity, they may have a large requirement in terms of what they need from a power and data perspective, and they may have a data center which does the brunt of it plus additional needs in that building, but they're not creating data centers within office space.
Yeah.
It still goes back to, honestly, location is the big one. The quality of the building, naturally, this flight to quality, best in class, everyone's talking about. It's the same things where you want to have outside space, you want to have, you know, your floor to ceiling windows, you want to have good natural light, all the usual stuff. Outside space, the amount of time you speak to an occupier is like, we need to have a terrace or the ability to get out in the building, or a yard is LED, LED. But brand new buildings generally, it's mad if they don't provide that. So again, nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
I would honestly always come back to, where is the building located? If it's like located in like a Zone 4 location, they're just not going to go there versus going to a London Bridge location. And that again is around, back to what I said before, attracting the talent. Is a young person who's entering the AI world going to go to a Zone 4 location versus London Bridge next to Borough Market? So
yeah, and if they're making billions, you'd like to think they can probably afford the premium rent between Zone 4 versus Zone 1, right?
Exactly.
And you said another one of my favorite things, flight to quality.
Yeah.
So in a new build, you know, if you mentioned already, outside space, floor to ceiling windows, obviously heavily amenitized space, but like, is there, when you have the sort of the second tier, like the secondary space, the grade B, like, is there any opportunity for those people to upgrade them to be anywhere close, or is the delta just too big between something that's brand new, got everything you need into it, and a secondary building in a good location? Like, would a company take something that's a bit more creative in their brand focus that doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but they can fill their brand? Or is the delta now just you've got your flight to quality and then everything else is just not even worth putting on that shortlist?
The flight to quality, if the buildings are available, they will go to those buildings. Okay. The challenge that we're having now is, as everyone keeps saying, is we're running out of supply of those brand new buildings.
Yeah.
So when an occupier, so if you think what we do, we basically search an entire market with an occupier, and you show them the best in quality. You then show some mid-range stuff to then just hoover up any other availability. If they have not got the ability to secure the best in class, there's two things you do. You go to a second grade building, or you change location. Okay. Again, generally, I think a lot of our occupiers, when they get their head around it, it's like you're going to pay a much less rent rate service charge, and you're going to have this big pot of money to make this second grade or lower quality building absolutely mega.
Yeah.
So in the last few months, definitely the market's really moved to, there's a lot of this stuff sitting in the lower to mid end. And actually, when you run through the costs, it's like, yes, it's not your brand new shiny building. However, the pot of money you're going to have to make the inside of this building and work with landlord to bring it up to a standard where you're comfortable with, put on a roof terrace or create a yard area. Those spaces are now starting to get a lot more interest and are now being hoovered up. I think one of the main factors for it, again, is the lack of supply at the top end.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good thing that these buildings, which have been sitting vacant for some time, are starting to get replenished again, and there are now plans to work with landlords to bring a product which now suits these companies to house their staff.
Which is, I suppose, trying to unlock that capital positioning when you've got the pressures of net zero, you've got, empty rates, hammering landlords. So actually the concept of almost turning to an occupier business to say, you're going to fund the upgrade of my asset is quite profound, because obviously the occupier doesn't get that uptick in value, but the landlord does. But actually, if they can't find the institutional money potentially to renovate it, if you've got someone on the hook and you work in collaboration with them, you can build the end product. Because when you're spec building in the UK, which we do obviously all the time, you're betting on what the occupier wants 3 years out. And obviously the market now has changed massively from 3 years time, and I'm sure it will again. But the opportunity to work with landlords, is that always been there, or is it now landlords are going, look, we really want you, we will apply for planning, we will put roof terraces? Is that an easier conversation where it was harder because the second tiers not shifting as fast? Or
Yeah, it's definitely always been there, but on a much smaller scale. I think to today, I think you hit the nail on the head there around that. It's that there's a tipping point, isn't there? There's collaboration to a point where the landlord has to put their hand in their pocket. If they're going to put the money in to get the higher rent, there has to be an element of the quality delivered has to then tick the boxes to at least get it to a point.
Yeah.
What obviously tenants won't do is pay the greater rent and then cut the rent-free period down to then, as you say, better the building, leave them 5 or 10 years, and landlord gets a better asset. But the majority of landlords, honestly, are really sensible around that. So we are definitely seeing actually an AI company. I just can't share who it is, but in Soho recently, there is a building which we've just secured, and the landlord's gone through a really collaborative approach where they're putting on a couple of floors and they're building it from shell right through to sort of Cat A plus for that occupier. And that was very much occupier what he needs. Landlord here's the obviously ultimately the bones of the building. There's then a point of realistically what we can deliver and see how close we can get together with the occupier. And we're finding that actually if they are both sensible, and
quite a big caveat.
Yeah, if they're both sensible, those things work really, really well, because actually what you end up having is then a building landlord delivers where the M&E's in the right, all this stuff. The M&E's in the right place. The terrace is in the right area where it's usable. If they're putting in meeting rooms, they're in the optimum locations, all that sort of stuff, as opposed to a tenant taking a space part fitted and they end up moving around all the stuff or knock down walls, and it's just not good for anyone.
And not the planet as well.
Exactly. From a sustainability perspective, it's terrible. So that collaborative approach, I think, is one of the greatest things that's coming out of the story 2 years ago that all the lower grade quality buildings, zombie buildings and ghost buildings, they're just now getting reworked and reused again, which is great to see.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted to hear about it. Especially, I'm sure the landlords who've got those buildings are probably slightly less worried about it, or have to be a bit more collaborative about how they would potentially do your traditional board up, feet up, and wait for an occupier to come and just sit your way through the empty rates and hope for the best.
Those times have gone.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. When you said the word tick box, I can't not think about ESG, which again you said at the top. In those collaborative conversations, like ESG, as far as the trend of what we're looking at, it was absolutely the first thing that was spoken about, ESG credentials in a building, which still no one's been able to tell me what they are. One day someone will explain what an ESG credential is, but is sustainability? I mean, I'm sure it hasn't gone away, but is there a maturity now and people know what they want from ESG, or are they still, ticking boxes?
I'm going to say ticking boxes camp. Not ticking boxes camp. I'm going to say there's a genuine misunderstanding of ESG, and I mean that from the perspective of the occupier. When ESG is generally really important, it's one of the things in a like a briefing document. So if I take a step back, so we go and meet an occupier, it's like, let's develop a brief together. Yeah, here's the size, location, the rent, or budget, etc. What else is important? There's things like the ESG things come into that conversation. But what it always ends up being is the environmental piece, and they link it straight away to sustainability, and they'd say, so what is the carbon footprint of the building, for example, or is the renewable energy in the building, or all the things that will link to the environment side, and that gets quickly added into the brief. And when going looking at buildings, it's very much a new building will tick a lot of boxes, and an older building will not tick a lot of boxes. And I think that whenever the viewing experience, when you're speaking to, say, a landlord's agent, or we're representing our occupier, we don't really get into the real detail then of the ESG stuff. There'll be things shouted around, like obviously BREEAM ratings or EPC ratings. But I feel there's probably on the occupier side, there's a naivety around, okay, how do I use that information? How is that going to benefit me? Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's then like, okay, that's great. I've ticked that box, so that's an A, and I've ticked that box, and that's great. And carbon footprint 0, whatever it is, net 0. And they go, cool, that's box is ticked, as opposed to that box is ticked, and actually what that means. What is the benefit to me? When I'm in that space, what's the benefit to me? And that's the gap in our business, and we're advising, and that's the gap in occupier, how they understand it. And that's the gap in probably the landlord agents getting that point across. Yeah. It's no one's fault, but the job's hard, and you're trying to, get a better rent, and, get the fit out right, and, get the company on the timeline. It just seems to fall down the priority list. But I don't think it's intentional.
Yeah, but it's complex. Yeah, right.
Really complex.
And actually, I think a lot of people default back to badges and accreditations because it's a kite mark, it's a benchmark against other buildings. Whereas actually, if you drill into, like we did with together on one occupier, it's actually what is actually in this building. like how do the things in this building potentially benefit you, and does the building have these things, and whether it's a smart meter, whether it's energy management. Like often you will see in brochures, which makes my toes curl, of smart tech, full stop.
What is it?
What is it? But be able to translate between an accreditation and actually the ongoing benefit of it. I suppose there's that educational piece of there's nothing at the moment, clearly why we want to audit more buildings, to go, this one's got that one doesn't have it. But when you're trying to educate them, I suppose you're building that brief, right? And, you know, if it's really important, that's great. But as you say, there's a lot of other bigger like factors in that decision-making process, and the sustainability bit kind of probably drops in it's fine, we'll get it through.
It does. But interestingly though, what was really helpful when you done an audit for us, you audited about 3-4 buildings. And what was really, really interesting for us, and you know, this business is a global HR platform. And whenever the audit came back of all the stuff which you audit, we had a meeting. They're like, that's really interesting. I didn't think we need to look into that sort of stuff. You know, things like smart meter are a good example, or is the other sensors turn the lights off when we're at home at weekends to save money and service charge and utilities, all that sort of stuff. And until that survey, that you done that audit and brought the answers to all the questions across different buildings, where every landlord's got a different way of giving you the information, and put it into a way which we can understand that. Only at that point we're like, oh, okay, interesting. So we can then save money based on blah, 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 blah. That's the massive gap.
Which is looking under the hood of like what the stuff's in there.
What's in there,
what's in there, what's not. Because buildings are complicated, and, you know, the idea of collaborating with occupiers, multi-tenanted buildings, you've got different owners, different property managers, businesses come and go, like buildings evolve, like they change a lot. And that's the hard thing, is keeping up with what the hell's in the building today versus what was in the building when we built it. It's BREEAM 7-8 years ago. It's like, are those things still working now, and what's going on?
Probably not.
Well, no, I'm glad to hear that it was it helped sort of position the question on it. You mentioned working for a cybersecurity company. And cybersecurity is something that we have seen definitely as a trend going forward. But when we've done audits of buildings, say, have you got a cyber policy? The response is typically, my company emails have. And I was like, no, I mean the building itself. And there's been a few articles about it, but and having done a podcast with a lawyer who's now including what's the building cybersecurity policy. Very long question as always from me, but is cyber part of the conversation now when you're doing those checklists of buildings? So you've got location, you've got rent, you've got ESG boxes. Is cyber below it or above those?
Cyber comes up every time, but probably too late. In the process. So what generally happens in the process? So go and look at buildings, go and get a short list of buildings, go and then make offers. You then bring in a company to do the space planning and look at how you're going to make it a really good space, deliver in terms of fit out. You then go under offer, and then the IT team come in to go, I'm going to look at the building and see what we need in terms of data and all that sort of stuff perspective. And then they raise security and cybersecurity in terms of data, all the data. And it's that in the last 2 years is becoming really common, because I think you said as like the label of smart buildings. Okay, smart buildings, why are they smart? Well, they're taking data from all different sources and using the data.
Hopefully.
And putting it somewhere, just locking the door and sticking it in the basement. They often say, okay, so what data is being collected? Where's the data going to? Where's the data being stored? Who can access the data? Can we access it? Do we own it? All that sort of stuff. And every landlord, not every landlord, that's unfair. The majority of landlords will try and answer the question as best they can, but I'm not sure they've probably got data going into a million different
things,
probably apps and things and programs, where I don't think they probably have an overarching answer to that. But I think honestly in the next sort of 12 to 24 months, that's going to become a pretty obvious point to come up at the front end when you're viewing buildings. They might drop in and go, just as a follow-up, by the way, cybersecurity, this is our process. This is our landlord process, which is bulletproof, by the way, your data safe and all that sort of stuff. That's the big one. So the second sort of tech stuff they always talk about is then the app of the building. So the actual app for the occupier. They're always
love an app.
Always the two things I mentioned. And the way the occupier looks at this is like simplicity and seamless. So if I have an app, I basically can access the building. So I go in there, access the building, that's a secure way to access the building. If I then want to look at occupancy levels of my team or who's in the office versus checking in, that's on my app. If I want to, the hospitality side, if I want to order food, that's on my app. If I want to find out what's going on in the area, that's all in there. They always ask about, if there is an app, they always ask, what does it actually do? And the biggest challenge, I think, for landlords is there's loads of different tools that probably do all these different things, but getting them to actually talk to each other on one app is quite difficult. And again, then for the occupier to really pull out the stuff they need to answer the questions, they often just give up with the app. The app just doesn't really work for them. So they're the two things that they often talk about: cybersecurity and is there like an app for the building that does these things.
But why? Again, I'm kind of not, obviously having run a tenant engagement app is one of the interesting things when the rubber hits the road of like, it makes complete sense of marketing, the viewing experience, you're unlocking a door, it's great, but we still meet people who've never heard of mobile access control. In 2026, they're like, I've never heard of that before. So because apps have become so prevalent, especially in these like grade, like the tier 1 buildings, is it a case of, do you get into the weeds of interrogating each app? Because that in itself is a whole different kettle of fish. Like, we've got an app, it's like, well, an app can do an awful lot of things, and it can also do not a lot of things.
Badly. Do a lot of things badly, or one thing well.
Yeah. But do you find, are you having to go into the point of like interrogating them and having an opinion on it, going, oh, I've seen that one before and it's bad, or not? Is it just a case of it's got an app, you've ticked the box, on you go?
If you think about the occupier, it's a really important thing for them. If they have at the touch their fingers the ability to have all of their information on this app, and we're recommending 3 buildings and 2 of those apps are brilliant and one's absolutely terrible. Do we flag that? It doesn't sit with us. No, we don't. But maybe actually it's one of the things that the IT team should pick up off the bat. What's going to happen though? The landlord's not going to change the app to basically get them in the building. Suppose I think there's a step before. Well, maybe they are. Is there a step way before that where landlords are just taking a lot more feedback from all the occupiers, from people like us and people like you, going, here's a load of great stuff around the app and here's a load of the bad stuff. Can you try and move the bad stuff to the good stuff and make the app better? I feel that's probably going to be a better process where it's a collaborative feedback process from occupiers. But again, landlords have a lot of stuff to be bloody worried about in that building, and I totally get it. So again, when you look at that priority list, that's probably again coming near the bottom.
Low.
It's a nice to have, but if it's not that effective, does it really matter? If the occupier's got the fit out in place which they like, the reception of the building's really, really good, the cleaners come, the place, the demise is clean, all those other things. I still feel that the app would come at the bottom.
It'd be bottom of that, the list of like, there's no one's making a property decision based on whether or not the app is good or bad. Therefore, like, actually in the interrogation of all the other things you've got to look at, it's like, actually, does it have it? It does. How good is it? Probably won't move the needle massively. I mean, the only thing obviously is it's in the service charge, right? So they're paying a price per square foot for a product. If they're not using it, they're typically bearing the brunt of that cost. And we often see as an example of it is like the with many things in technology, the sort of the launch is the start, not the end. And actually having a program of like what you're going to use it for, who's engaging it, what's the content. If you're in a multi-tenanted environment, like, you need a person driving it. And often the building services team that they're very good at keeping everything going. They're not necessarily your content creator for building an event. So I think that's where lots of the co-working flex guys, because they have experienced event people, they're better at engaging with it. But if you throw it over the wall and disappear off and hope that people will use it, it's tricky.
Yeah, because the serviced office guys are good at that, aren't they? We work for the next 6-12 months, and their app is good, but I feel our app has to be good. If you think about what they've created in the last 10 plus years, the community of WeWork is what they've been trying to grow and own, and it's the place you go to find all the stuff. And if that app didn't work, I think that's probably pretty broken. But again, at least space in a building, maybe well, to be fair, thinking about what we've just said there, it like WeWork and Fora have probably set the benchmark and examples where maybe on the leasing side, where you've got singular floors, etc., the landlord should be looking at those apps to maybe take some inspiration to make more effective. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed your comment about the feedback bit with tenants. Like, I used to joke when we would go and pitch the app I used to run, tenant engagement. I was like, have you asked the tenants if they want it? It was like, no. It's like, probably a good place to start. Like, before you get down a buying journey to go like, we'd like to do this. Well, I think, the marketing demands that we have this tick box, which is an app. It's like, great. Like, have you asked the occupiers in your building if it's an existing one, like, do they actually want it? It's like, well, why would we do that? So I don't know, the clue's in the name, like, it's an engagement product. Maybe ask them what they want and if it's going to solve a problem. And my experience is going, but I've got this new app. It's like, well, the lift doesn't work and I've got a leak. I'm like, it can't solve those, so I'm just going to show myself out. So I think there's that the kind of need for collaboration is definitely there, but it's hard because we spec build, right? And whether you're a law firm, whether you're a tech company, you're going to have different requirements of what you want from it. But it's also about where you allocate those funds into things that are important.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose then in the conversations around the occupier the things that are on the priority list now, obviously you've covered like location and building quality, FUTS quality, potential collaboration of it. Like, is there anything that you're hearing that might not be being spoken openly about? I think cyber you mentioned on the things we see in the news and on, but is it scaling up, scaling down? Is it headcount? Is it AI? Is it, are there any conversations going on behind the scenes that people should know about as far as like what's driving business moves and decisions at the moment beyond growth or anything else? Or is it just a case of everything is in the format in which you would expect it to be?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there's nothing out of the ordinary. Obviously, the backdrop, the bloody political backdrop at the minute is affecting decisions. We'll not get into that, but
no, definitely don't get into that place. We haven't got enough time for that.
Yeah, that's just one of the factors which I think was pushing against people making decisions. But it's all the same stuff. It's amazing to see and I love the whole AI stuff. People call it the bubble. I think it's really incredible because that in itself is triggering other people outside of those sectors to make choices around. These guys are going for it. They're backing themselves to recruit. So I think that very positive movement of taking large chunks of space and shouting about it is actually dragging the rest of the market up.
Yeah.
And I think I touched on it at the start, in the last month or so, the narrative definitely changed around this lower end of the market. And people are seeing opportunity now in these lower quality buildings. And that for me is the biggest shift. All their stuff's normal. People are still growing, so they're going to take a bigger office.
Yeah.
The companies who are struggling because of all the stuff going on in the world are downsizing. They're trying to get out of their leases. So that's all normal. But that in the last month, I've definitely seen the buildings we looked at actually. So 3 of those, we can then get a building for half the price of the really, really nice one. And actually we've got then a big pot of money to make this a really incredible space internally.
Yeah.
May not look amazing externally, but we can get on board with that. And then bring in their whole business to feed into actually how would you create the perfect environment for the team.
Yeah.
And that using that as an opportunity to really, again, instigate further growth by attracting talent of look at this great office again. So it's all, from my perspective, I'm a glass half full person. It's all really positive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people saying in the market that it's tougher at the minute. Activity is low. Certain sectors probably, but I was out of the recruitment business yesterday who have known for a very long time, and they were saying that the message in recruitment is dead because of AI.
Yeah,
they've adopted it to make their recruiters more efficient, and they're growing year on year between 10 and 20%. So they basically have just got their head out of the AI headlights and gone, okay, how can we use this to make us better? Amazing. And they're just like, we're going for it.
Yeah,
we're just going to make our guys recruit more efficiently and put more candidates in places and focus on AI on all these sectors which are recruiting. So for me, it's a really positive time in real estate.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to hear that actually, again, the challenge is always when they're talking about AI in businesses and actually challenging business to think differently. Yeah. And I think for us in the lens we look at in real estate is like the understanding of trying to be data curious about our buildings, but actually the fear mongering of AI is going to replace jobs, and actually whereas hearing about people actually leveraging it to grow a business and retain the staff and grow, and even showing by the large language models taking huge chunks of space. I think the evidence is pointing in the direction that actually those that apply it well will grow headcount, not consolidate. And I think that is definitely an important message, I think, to get across, which 100%. Is, but we've spoken before about like the traditional methodology and the challenges trying to embed technology into business. Obviously, you guys have invested pretty heavily in it and investment in it. So how did you cross that chasm of going, where do we start?
It's really tough. It's really, really tough. And you can very quickly see how people invest hundreds of thousands of pounds into an advisor on what is the best AI for a business. And the way we've approached this, we've looked at small, as opposed to trying to, what's the best way? As opposed to going, we're going to basically make this process 3 times faster and remove a human. We've taken a small part of the process and gone, how can we drop AI in to make that part of the process more efficient? Take that box and move on to the next part. So it's more like small chunks. And our investment in AI will be around just things like if there is an admin task that the human is doing, how do you remove all of those so that person has more time to, go to the gym or more time to spend time with the family, but then also for our benefit, more time to develop more business, speak to more clients, view more buildings. It's twofold. Yeah. So if you look at it from a lens of it's not going to replace a human, it's going to optimize how the human operates. That's where you're going to spend way less money, because you realize really quickly you could take this AI product, but says it does all these things, but when you actually put it in the business, the adoption part is the problem. Getting people to use the thing is really difficult because it's so alien. Hold on a second, I've been doing that job 100% for the last 10 years, and now I'm doing that 20% of that job. So then what do I do? It's it's a really weird thing to get everyone just to go, okay, just turn that on. So it's the adoption piece, which is where the biggest challenge is for AI.
Yeah.
I think that's going to continue for a long time.
Yeah, I think, as you say, I think you articulated perfectly, which is like, how do you the adoption rate is always the biggest challenge. We talk about when we're doing software procurement for people, it's like, look, you have a product, you've had it for 10 years, it's a legacy, it doesn't work, and there's better products out there, and we could probably save you money on that software license fee and get you a cheaper, better product. But you've got to train 800 staff that have been using your existing bad product for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, that cost and time is way more than everything else. Like, it's the people bit is always a challenge, right?
And the failure rate then of, you might get, say, 400 as adopters, you'll get 200 on the fence, and you'll just get, your 200 which just refuse to do it. And that's apparently the case, is that you always have that. So there's a drop-off rate of people just going, I'm out type thing. So yeah, you've got to try and build it in.
I mean, is it something you would include in like if you're going to pitch to an occupier? I'm sure obviously you get amazing referrals. People come back to you because you do amazing work. But do you find yourself having to talk about how you're using AI? Like, are businesses saying to you, what's your approach on AI? What's your use on it? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it depends on the occupier. They do more, I think, more from a curiosity perspective.
Fishing for ideas.
Yeah. And I think it's quite a good one, because it's all just new to most people. And if you're speaking to another business leader, a good conversation is like, what are you doing with AI? Are you guys using it? You adopting it? And the majority of people are saying we've tried it in this department, or we're actually just trialing a off-the-shelf tool.
Yeah.
Not many will turn around and say to us, so in terms of our business, we're not going to use your services because you're not utilizing AI. It's more like it's
not that maturity where it's like,
it's more like a rapport thing, isn't it? And I think being quite honest around, we're trying to improve our output to you. For example, if we, say, Freddie, you said to me, I want all the buildings in King's Cross, and we send you a schedule of the buildings in King's Cross, where we're getting better at asking feedback, and that we're trying to, in a process of improving the output, what do you think about it? Because we're using AI to make it look better. So it's more feedback versus, we're going to use this guy over you guys because they use AI for the process. It's less about that.
The other challenge we've definitely heard talk about is, would you penalize a company that used AI to respond to an RFP, or would you reward them for using AI? Like, are you cheating, or are
smart,
you?
Isn't it? Yeah, smart. Again, if you just put it in AI and get Claude to print out the response, then you're not going to win that RFP.
But I hope not.
Hope not. But obviously we use it to, again, speed up the process of populating. I mean, RFPs are monster documents, and if you've got all of our data held in a place in different parts, which AI can sort to drop it into the optimum response to that question, obviously we're going to use it. But not plagiarizing or just using a deck we used before and then drop it in next week. Again, you're just not going to go very far doing that.
Yeah, exactly. There's still the human element of it, and actually the context window that no AI will understand, which is all the other idiosyncrasies you've accumulated from being in the industry for a long time.
Double dash you'll get, won't you?
Every time. You'll get
crazy words in there.
Yeah, exactly that. It's like, how do I know this is that? It's like, because there's double dashes about 400 times. So I think that should just be a comma. Exactly. Yeah, you're out of the loop. One thing I just want to go back to is the viewing experience and the viewing tour. Like, it's obviously been a long time since I was an agent, which is probably a good thing for the market anyway. But when you're talking about the things you have to cover on going around a building, and when you've got net zero, ESG, potentially now cybersecurity, tenant engagement apps, like, has the viewing experience changed in the last few years? Because obviously you're showing amenity space and you're showing the empty office floor or the fit out. Like, is there more context, more conversations going on about whether it's the technology, the infrastructure, the ESG? Like, is the viewing experience changed, or is it still very much exactly as it was 10 years ago? Like,
definitely improved. There are a handful of people who just haven't sort of moved with the times, and it's the same sort of stuff. But you have a lot of the market who are just excellent at their job. When they arrive, they've got the landlord who's given them all the information to deliver, and they put it into their own pitch. And it is like things like amenity, like in the building, whenever they've spent loads of money delivering a really great amenity and you go in there, it's mad if you don't spend some time in that space and talk about the journey that they went through to design it and get there, and the benefit to the occupier. Things like the tech in the building, again, I think they would just touch on, there is an app in the building.
Yeah.
And that would be it. They're not going to
full stop.
They're not going to go through what is on that. Some agents may in a third and fourth tour maybe then talk a bit more about that if it's led by the occupier, saying, so exactly, you talk about the app, what does that look like? Well, you can get in the building through it, you can do all that stuff, and maybe talk through it, but they wouldn't lead with that. But interestingly, you talk about sustainability on the net zero side, like Land Security's building the Forge down in South Bank. one of their first net zero buildings. They'd brought someone from Landsec to deliver that piece around their journey to delivering that building. All the embodied carbon side of things, which is super interesting, and definitely our client within there is obviously they are a carbon offsetting business, so obviously they cared a lot about that. But other occupiers, which we showed that space to, they all found that a really compelling story, very interesting around when that building was developed. This is a process we went through.
Yeah,
so that was that was quite good. And back to your question, is the agents were very well versed in delivering that message really early on, because I think it's really important. And you can see certain people on our side, the occupier, there'll be people in that group view in the space. They go, that's good, that's a tick.
But I suppose so then there's a heightened level of storytelling and amenities, as opposed to, follow me up to the third floor, walk around. We've got VRF, and
you still get a few of those.
Few of those. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Or it's not.
Yeah, if it all goes wrong, I can still get back.
Yeah, it's not my building, so I don't know much about this. You're like, fucking hell, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you do know we arranged this thing, and you're meant to come here with those answers.
They're still good.
So are occupiers like volunteering and asking these more different questions, difficult questions about the building, like the M&E, or is it still led by you probing is it an agent to agent conversation, or is there a maturity in certain businesses knowing what to ask? Because obviously, well, that's a different way. You guys typically work with like the SMEs who won't necessarily have a dedicated real estate team, would be my assumption. So therefore,
depends, there'd be probably 60% would be that, then 40% would be you'd have your proper team, property team who would dig into that.
Yeah. So when you have those ones that have got that internal advisory, are they not charming in, because that sounds negative, but are they sort of pushing the needle on the questions they want to get? Because this might be their third office move as a company, and they might have learned from the previous moves of things that are high priorities, or are they still kind of looking to you to be the one to interrogate the agent on the story?
So the company you done the audit for have a property team of 5 people.
Okay.
And the audit which you provided was eye-opening for them as to the things which they should be looking at across the buildings. So that triggered a thought around, interesting. So these things, that building and that building, now looking at these side by side, apples for apples, that building's much better based on that audit. So to answer your question, I still think it's come back to this sort of same stuff. They'll touch a bit in M&E, they'll walk around, look at natural light, and they'll visualize how they'd be in the space. But again, lifting the lid on the stuff which came back in the audit of really what is in the basement. You know, like
on a viewing tour, you're not going, this is the facilities manager's office with no windows in it. Welcome. Hopefully you'll never be in here, but this is where the guys work.
Yeah, agreed. There's definitely like a follow-up. There's a follow-up point where those things would be scooped up. But yeah, you might have one person on that tour who just knows everything on the property team, and then you really have to pull your socks up and like try and get some of those answers. But generally it is more around the aesthetic of that office and how they visualize and how they could be in it.
Yeah, I think your point of like those questions come up when you're down the track. Like when you're showing someone a viewing tour of 5-6 buildings, like you're not expecting them to go into interrogation because they might have discounted it by the moment they walk through reception. Yeah. So there's actually no point in going, well, if I don't like the entrance of the building and they've got no amenities, I don't care if it's got an amazing technology stack in it, it doesn't work for us. So I think it's always going to be a case of like those mature conversations coming down the line. But I suppose therefore expecting an agent to know about that stuff versus actually if you're heads of terms, when you said the IT guys come in and start going, what's the cyber bit, then that's probably the right time to do it, as opposed to if you have an agent spending 50 minutes explaining the converged network in a building and how it's cyber secure, you'd be like, can you
switch off?
Please be quiet and show us where the gym is.
But if you brought back to your point though, if you brought that piece around cybersecurity is a good example, or tech stack, bring that forward, shortlisting stage, and then link that to experience and cost for the occupier. That then would trigger a much different reaction.
Yeah, because you don't care what the company is that it is. You care about the experience and impact on the people.
That's it.
The product's irrelevant. It's actually like what's meaningful for you as a business coming into it.
Exactly that. How's it going to impact my people? How's it going to impact my balance sheet? That's a different narrative to those things as opposed to what is in the building.
Yeah, talking about a product is
that's the piece we can all do better is as an industry is sort of drag that forward to look at occupier impact. Well, us anyway, obviously active occupiers, but if we can drag that forward to an earlier shortlisting stage, that then makes things really tangible of experience and cost for the occupier. That then becomes, I think everyone will then get better at then digging into the the answers to those questions at a much earlier stage.
Yeah, long may that continue. So we can build a benchmark that allows people to do that very easily, mate. One day, one building at a time, as always with these things.
Taking over the world.
Just going into, I've tried my best not to interrogate you about tech, because obviously I know you're not the
definitely not a tech expert.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I'm not here trying to put you on the spot about it, but I did a podcast with a design and build company, a leader, and I asked him about like what technology is part of your design intent. Is there anything consistent?
Yeah.
Are people wanting to know occupancy, air quality, energy?
Those first two for me are the most common.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're say at a 150 to 200 person business and you're on a big old floor plate, you want to understand what I need. If I'm going to relocate all my team, and I need to understand what they currently use the office and how they use the office, the sensors of their movement around the office is definitely the first thing. That's a really, really good starting point, which we're saying that's pretty constant at that sort of size.
Okay.
If you're 30 to 50 people, it's a bit easier to probably map that out.
Because you can see.
Yeah, exactly that. You sit
put your head out the window. It's like, I can see it
for a week.
Yeah.
But if you really want to do that properly, to really understand, do I need 5 meeting rooms and 10 meeting rooms? What sizes are they? What do people actually do in the meeting rooms? How often is the boardroom used? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You really need that data.
Yeah.
Fixed desks is an amazing one. It's like, we have 400 people, so we need broadly 200 fixed desks. Like, do you there? Because when people come to the office, they're going to be in meetings. You've got a big ass breakout area, which works really well. You can plug in. You've got standing areas. You've got all these great things, and a lot of the staff might use those. So, is that 200, 150 fixed desks? You have more of the collaboration stuff.
Yeah.
So that for me is the first thing, where the occupancy sensors to understand what people are doing when they come in the office.
Okay.
The second one is definitely air quality. Air quality comes up from, I hate this office because I've been in that meeting room 500 times. It's really, really hot, and I go out of there and I'm really zonked. And you're like, okay, there's probably no air in that meeting room. It's probably one of the reasons why. Have you ever checked like the CO2 in that room? And they never have. So that's when you say, you can check why it's hot and stuffy, because there's like a way to do that. Once you say that, they get quite obsessed with that. And that's those two things would be the most,
of all the other things you could potentially talk about. They're the ones that's like actually very selfishly. The reason why I ask is, when we're advising landlords on that spec build development bit, is we'll talk about like, you can buy all of this stuff potentially to put in your building to make it really super smart. Like whether it's controlling the lights with your phone, whether it's changing the blinds, like all these things, like actually, but when it comes to an occupier moving into a Cat A space, like what is their priority list?
What are they going to use?
And, spectrally putting in sensors into a Cat A space, I still think is pretty stupid, because if you put it into if you put your sensors into an open plan, as soon as a tenant does their Cat B, the sensor location is completely wrong. It doesn't work. But having a box of them, or having a strategy to offer to an occupier saying, hey, we've got these sensors that connect into the building, and here they are as a capital contribution for you to use.
Absolutely.
The only challenge will be your bit you raised earlier about the data ownership. It's like, well, if you bought them, do you have the data? Do we have the data? And
that's why you have a plan though for that. If you have a plan, it's like, the plan is, guys, we've got this box of sensors. This is what you use them for. They're going to go, that's pretty cool. That's great. So I can then monitor how people use the office, and then change the office to make them more productive. Brilliant. And then the second is, and by the way, here's a really robust data strategy. I got that from that. That's like an easy win. They will generally take you up on that, I would say, because we're sort of backtracking them. We're looking at their old office, which doesn't work, and trying to get some answers. And then you're delivering this new office, which is never perfect, as we all know. You're always going to go into it and go, shit, I should have done that and this, but there's nothing to measure that. It's just more look and feel. And emotionally, how we feel is that the boardroom never gets used. It's like, well, how often does it get used? Well, rarely. It's like, okay, any data around?
What number is rarely?
How many people are in there? Like when it's used, all that sort of stuff. So I think they would definitely take you up on that. If there was a roadmap of how to use it and where the data is stored.
I think the challenge we've certainly observed is that sometimes people don't want to know that data.
Yeah, fair.
Because if you've just spent an absolute, millions,
just deal with it.
You've spent millions fitting out your office, and I'm going to give you a piece of data, say, that $100,000 boardroom, no one ever uses
under the carpet.
So it's like, we'll just, and I think that's why some people, sometimes I don't actually want to know that, because, actually, if I tell you that what you've done is wrong, do you have the budget to change it? That's often,
I can actually understand that, I'll be us probably make a moose, like, perfect, just deal with it.
It's like,
close the door.
It's fine. No, just delete that account. I don't want it anymore. But, I always say ignorance isn't bliss, right? With these things, actually, you probably could do it. And sometimes it might be a cultural thing of, encouraging people to have meetings or not use meetings. Don't book a meeting room for the two of you. It can be a people thing again, but the technology can give you the evidence. So when the sentiment comes up with it, and we've certainly seen a bigger trend of occupiers investing more in their space,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
them taking on a landlord base build and expanding it significantly. I
Yeah.
think, there's several applications that are in buildings where like the landlord's got the light version of the product,
Yeah.
and occupiers have gone, this is great, and I want it in my workspace, and that workspace then is in this building, but then also in all of my other buildings. And access control has definitely been a big one of those, where
Massive, yeah.
if you are a multi-site business, the concept of having 5 different key cards to get in is just mad. And I still, it blows away that still the solution is his piece of plastic, and I'm going to be sustainable. It's like, no, it's okay, you can get in.
Piece of plastic and a key.
And a key, exactly. Yeah, well, I suppose it's cyber secure. It's like, yes, because it's a key. So that's not ideal.
And you'll lose your key.
Yes, and then it would be delightful. I've really enjoyed this. I think we could probably talk all
great,
day. But I've got 2 closing questions I ask everyone.
Yeah.
And we've covered a lot of things in technology, cyber, AI, etc. But what's the one piece of technology you wish more people knew about today in PropTech they don't know about?
I would say it's going to be the air quality sensors.
Okay.
I'd say that we had a meeting a while ago and you pop one down. I think that's really interesting. I think that people understanding that when you're in a room which is full of bad quality air, the knock or an office space, the knock on productivity and the knock on how you feel is quite massive.
Yeah.
That just never seems to be talked about or addressed.
Yeah.
And it should be. We talk about lights, don't we? You talk about light. You build a meeting room with no windows in there. You're not going to be in there very long, are you?
No.
It's just grim. Same sort of thing with air quality for me.
Yeah,
that's quite a big one.
Love it. Yeah, huge advocate for it. So I'm glad to see you still remembered my ranting to you about the sensor.
Yeah,
we've talked about a lot. Obviously, your lens is from the occupier and the people you advise. But when it comes to innovation in real estate and making smarter buildings, who do you think should be leading the charge? Should it be the owners? Should it be the property managers who look after and maintain it? Or is it on the occupiers to force the hand of those in the buildings?
Great question. So Utopia would be a collaborative approach.
Okay.
So you would have a landlord who would, and I know this is really hard, by the way, I'm not saying landlords could do this because there's a lot of stuff in developing a building, for example, and so there's a lot of risk in there and cost and all those things, but collaboratively collect all of the occupiers in multiple buildings across London, etc., and then collaboratively build that together. However, it is ultimately it's a landlord's market, isn't it? The office market in London is tailored for landlords. It just is. That's just the way it is. There's a hell of a lot more agents who represent landlords across the market. There's definitely less of us, and products are built from landlords, agents, and landlord teams feed into landlords to develop the products.
Okay.
So it has to be, for me, it will have to be led by the landlords. But I feel that what can make that better is really, really gathering that feedback from obviously people like us and the actual occupiers around. If we were to collaborate together to make this building fantastic in terms of it being the tech stack and being tech ready and like a smart building, what does it look like? Like, what would you actually use?
Yeah.
Based on your experience the last 5 years and what's an example? The app in the building, did it work? Did you use it? Did the staff use it? I think that'd be really interesting. I appreciate that there's a lot of other more important stuff, but I think maybe trialing that on quite a few buildings on like a really, really large scale would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not a landlord. I'm not a landlord's agent, so you might tell me to just piss off.
Well, it might do, yeah. But I really appreciate that, because we talk about looking backwards to go forwards. And when we go into rooms with advising landlords with landlord agent there or the property manager, and they're going, oh, what's the future building look like? And I always say, haven't you done this before? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, this probably isn't the first building you developed. So, no, it's not. I was like, well, what's working in your existing assets today?
Yeah, great.
Because the answer to your future question is probably buried in
there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll find the things that didn't work, that were expensive, that failed.
Yeah.
There'll be a huge amount of lesson learned in the things we've done, because we've been doing this for a long time. And as you say, bringing in the customer.
Bringing the feedback. Yeah. Customer feedback, customer who's best type stuff.
Exactly.
And again, that point's not, you're not going to create this solely around the customer. There'll be limitations, obviously, the cost, all that stuff, cost limitations, etc. But with that's a really good point. What you've just said is lift the lid on 10 years of experience of stuff. There'll be stuff, when you like, and we've done loads, we've built things and make moves internally, like a bit of tech where you that's really, really good. And then fast forward a year, it just gets shelved. And, and you don't really want to look at why.
Yeah.
You're like, that costs like 10 grand or whatever it is. We'll just forget about that. There'll be loads of that, which is you can understand why you just you just like draw a line, we're going to look forward. But I love that concept of looking back and just learn, isn't it? Learning.
Yeah, because I think it moves so quickly, and it's so hard to know exactly, like, well, because the development planning and all that stuff takes so long to do it. And I think, again, if you had an AI company, a law firm, or a property company, they probably have different needs as well. So you can't have this like panacea, like this is the perfect building.
Yeah.
But you can probably get to the list of the things you don't need to spend money on, or you do need to spend more money on. I think that's the other part. Often we see the value engineering is someone's like removed air quality sensors as an example. It's like, oh, no one likes those. And actually, if you went and looked and said, if you went to all your occupiers, they'd actually really like that, or they invested in it themselves. I think there's still that little bit of knowledge gap between marking your own homework, which I don't think we like to do as an industry very often, unsurprisingly.
Like it.
Awesome, mate. Well, thanks so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your insights. No, mate, it's been really generally fascinating. As I say, it's nice to hear from somebody that's actually in the room with businesses and what they're talking about and where it is. And I'm also delighted to hear that there's an optimistic market chat going on from you guys, and hope you keep on going from strength to strength.
Love it. Thanks, mate.
Awesome, mate. Cheers.
Appreciate it.